What is the longest 5 minutes you have ever experienced? Being a kid and waiting for my mom to finish talking to friends. That ain't 5 minutes yo. That's legit an hour. Waiting for my girlfriend to finish talking to friends. Waiting in front of the bathroom because I need to pee but my brother locked the door. 10-year-old me waiting inside the restroom for my mom to come in and help me get my dong off my zipper. Vividly remember those 5 mins of excruciating pain. Longest 5 mins ever. Use the kitchen sink. On the way to a toilet trying to hold back destructive diarrhea in a public place. Then trying to silence your butthole as it sputters out in a bathroom stall where there is a huge gap between the bottom of the door and the floor, and where every little sound seems to echo. Then cleaning up with fucking 1-ply toilet paper. I used to deal with this at least once a month from my period. Sometimes vomit at the same time as diarrhea. I was in college so every bathroom I had access to was a public bathroom. Sucked. I have felt this way too many times. I'm lactose intolerant and I don't react good to caffeine, I guess. I don't really know what to call this, but it's really recent so I've been experimenting a lot. I love me some iced lattes with almond milk, and used to drink those a lot. When I found out I'm lactose intolerant I continued drinking it because I could. But I think the coffee thing came with it or something. So now, everyone I have lunch with assumes I can have iced lattes w almond milk, because I only tell them about the lactose not the coffee BC. I just find that weird. But they assume I can have iced lattes and this has happened before they get there before me. Order for me. I always order the same thing. And get an iced latte w almond milk BC. I used to drink that always but don't know I can't drink coffee. I end up just drinking it BC. They already ordered it and OMG just how many times I've almost shit myself BC of this. THX for listening. I recently had a very frightening sleep paralysis. It probably just lasted for a few minutes but it felt like ages. I have them on a regular basis since a kid. All the men's in my family have them. As a kid they were traumatizing. In the teenage years I found out exactly what they were and decided to take the most out of it and pretend I'm a though guy in a game. So whatever I'm confronted with the aliens coming I'm like I'm just waiting for you to get a bit closer. Come on MF. Just a bit more. Now I can instantly go back to sleep after them. Before I'd lose the rest of the night. I was on placement with a doctor and he told a patient that he might lose his leg due to diabetes. It obviously upset him, but the doctor left to go get something leaving me in the room with him. He must have been gone for only 2 minutes but I swear it felt like 20. The guy was quietly sobbing to himself and I had no idea what to do or say. So, on the plus side you'll save 50% off shoes. When I was a kid, my mom told me to wait online at the supermarket, and then she went to go get some more things. The person who was at the cashier had just paid and the lady in front of me began unloading her, not heavily packed, shopping cart. She had almost finished loading and was about ready to pay when my mother finally reappeared. Those were simultaneously the longest and the shortest and most terrifying 5 minutes of my life. Now that I'm in my mid-20s, whenever I go grocery shopping with my mom, I make her wait in the line, and if she remembers some last-minute item, I go and fetch it. It's basically a no you move. My dad did this to me when I was about 7 or 8. The cashier ended up scanning everything before my dad came back and I just remember bursting into tears when she told me the total price. I hate it so much when people do this. In 5th grade while the principal was listing off the profanities I searched on Google Earth. Fucking Austria. Cockburn, Western Australia. Newfoundland had some great town names. Dildo, Conception Bay, and Come By Chance are within a couple hours drive of each other. Also Spread Eagle. Cocktown. At the hospice holding my husband's hand as he died longest 5 minutes of my life. I'm so sorry. Just pronounced somebody during my overnight shift. Her family held her hand as she died. It's one of the most natural things we do in life. Insert everybody dies line here. But being there and being part of the moment is probably the best thing you could have done for him and for yourself. I still admire your strength to be there. I'm so sorry for your loss. I remember sitting with my dad in hospice, waiting for other family members to arrive because it was the middle of the night and I was going to fall asleep. Dad was sleeping peacefully, So I pulled out my phone for a few minutes to keep myself awake. Halfway through an askreddit thread I looked up and realized he had died. Whoops. A presentation about grass. I don't know why we had to watch it. Or why they chose to do it. I don't know why we has to watch it. Or why they chose to do it. Cash, ass, or presentation about grass. No one writes for free. Mayo watching my crush walk away after I told her how I felt. Then she came back about 5 minutes later and just quietly told me she didn't want to speak with me anymore. It hurts a little less when you start your sentence with LMAO. Capital F. My crush couldn't even tell me that to my face. She told a mutual that she would rather be lesbian and date me. LMAO. The last 5 minutes on a treadmill. The whole 5 minutes on a treadmill. Edit. My first silver is awarded to me for being physically unfit. Thank you. The last few minutes are the best because you are so close to finishing and you can just sprint it out. The middle is what really sucks. Waiting for that pregnancy test result, regardless of how you want the result to sway. Waiting for HIV tests as well. Even if you were with the same clean person or used condoms every time, you can't help but wonder if some Lifetime movie shit is about to happen to you. Mine showed up right away, so at least I didn't have to wait for an eternity. Loading screens in games back when I had a laptop. I have so many Sims 4 loading screen tooltips memorized. Whims are things your Sims want to do, but you don't have to. Cough GTA 5. Waiting at the DMV lines that lead to the true DMV line. Such a wonderful multicultural experience. The DMV really has it all. Disgruntled governmental employees, inefficient, on the verge of going postal. Best assortment of cultural representation you'll find in one place. They should have food vendors and bands playing all types of music. It should be a more celebratory experience. When my son was born I couldn't see him as he stopped breathing felt like forever. He is turning 1 next month. He held his breath for a whole year? Holy shit. But on a more serious note. Congrats. That's amazing. Being young and waiting for my mum to pick me up from somewhere and she was late. Young? I still do this. I'm always on time. If I tell someone I'll be there at 3 PM to pick them up, you know I'll be there exactly at 3 PM. Not a minute late. Then every minute I wait for you just pisses me off more and more. Once my ex made me wait over 25 minutes for her and it was ridiculous. By the time she made it to the car I was just so annoyed I didn't even want to go to the event anymore. Very short backstory. I was born with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and have been largely bedridden and wheelchair bound for the past 6 or so years. Now it's called GER, replace rheumatoid with idiopathic, but I'm not sure which branch I belong to. Regardless, because of my disease, my hip replaced when I was 19. Story. Back in November, I was diagnosed with TTP and was in the process of dying. I was in and out of consciousness and quickly nearing the state of permanent brain damage, unable to speak properly, knowing what words I wanted to say, and only being able to get out bathroom and birthday, plus general confusion. Meanwhile the doctors and the ICU were hooking tubes to my femoral artery, while wholly unable to understand what I was trying to say. Because I had only ever had one problem with my hip in the past, and I had no idea what was going on, other than that I said yes to surgery. Oh, yeah, I could nod or shake my head, but could only say no. I often forget that because the birthday and bathroom thing was so traumatizing, I was sure it was related. Which meant something was wrong with my hip replacement. I was then convinced that was the problem, and that I would need weeks to heal. Not that I had during my actual replacement, now that I think of it. Weird. Anyway, when I was going in and out of consciousness, I thought each time I woke up was a new morning. Weeks and weeks were going by, and I was slowly healing every day, until one morning I woke up and started to panic. I was feeling better, the pain was gone, so I must have been healed. But if weeks, it possibly even months had gone by, then where was my fiancé? Where was my son? When the panic had fully set in, I was convinced everyone thought I had died, and my fiancé was distraught and killed himself, because it was the only way he would ever not come visit me for so long. and my son was sent to live with his abusive alcoholic of a sperm donor. Absolutely freaking out. Have never felt so vulnerable in my life as I did that moment. I tried desperately to ask the nurse about my fiance. After about a dozen slowly articulated pleas of birthday and bathroom, I decided to try boyfriend instead, only to come out with birth friend. Thankfully that was enough. My nurse went from giving me a kind, yet frustrated nods to a purposeful rigidity, then said, boyfriend, you want fiance's name? I nodded like a bobblehead on crack. That's when she said the words that are likely the most relieving thing I've heard to date. He was on his way. When he got there, I had to be sedated because I tried to get out of my bed to climb him like a tree. I never wanted to let him go. A few days later and he was still with me when I was able to start talking again. The first thing I asked my fiance when he got there, how long have I been here, to which he replied, 1 day. The idea of being able to think, but having no way of communicating your thoughts sounds downright terrifying. How are you today? How was the recovery process? My son was silent when he was born. The doctor gave me a serious look, handed me the scissors to cut the umbilical cord, and then rushed my son to a table on the other side of the room. I moved to the head of the bed to tell my wife what a great job she did. I honestly have no idea how long it took to hear him cry, but those minutes were the longest year of my life. He turned 20 last month. Lost my 4-year-old daughter in a busy museum when she wandered off by herself. Found her a little while later oblivious to the fact that the museum was on lockdown. Typing. Waiting to see the doctor to find out if I did or did not have breast cancer. So what were the results? Every time my dad begins a story I've heard 100 times. Firstly, happy cake day. Secondly, when my father's heart had stopped beating and we called an ambulance, we had to wait for approximately 7 minutes for it to arrive. And because no one in my family knew CPR, we had to watch him die in front of our eyes. Edit. Thank you kind strangers for the silver awards. Sorry for your loss. 911 should have told you how to perform CPR. It's very odd that they didn't instruct you. Trying to stay afloat in the ocean while waiting to be rescued. This is the part where you tell the story. Oh god. This story still gives me shivers. When my son was 3, our neighbors were getting renovations done, so there were big, noisy trucks everywhere. I was getting ready for work and popped into the laundry adjacent to the lounge room where my son was watching TV, to iron a shirt for work. It took me about 2 minutes, and when I turned back to the lounge room, my son was gone. I called out that we were ready to leave. No answer. I look in the pantry. No answer. I start calling louder and louder. No answer. Looked out in the driveway. No answer. Backyard. Not there. By this time I was kinda starting to freak out. I ran upstairs and stuck my head into all of the bedrooms, calling his name. Nothing. Ran back up to the front of the house, up the driveway, down next door's driveway to see if he was watching the trucks. Still nothing. Completely freaking out now. I didn't know whether to ring the police to report him missing, keep looking, or ask the neighbors for help. There had very recently been a very high-profile kidnapping of a young boy only a few months older than my son. I was a mess. I had literally looked everywhere he could have been. After what felt like an hour, I started to run back upstairs and he was just there, at the top of the stairs. I collapsed onto the stairs, hugging him and crying. He was just bewildered, the poor little thing. Turns out he had gone out onto my bedroom balcony upstairs to watch the trucks next door. Because the balcony extended out a little past the door, I couldn't see him when I looked through the room as he was hidden behind the exterior wall. He couldn't hear me calling because of the trucks. When I looked back at my watch, it had been 4-5 minutes since I first noticed him missing. It felt like hours. I cried so many times that day and the following week when I remembered what that had felt like for 5 measly minutes when another mum nearby had been experiencing that same feeling for, at that stage, weeks and weeks. This happened 4 years ago and the other child has never been found. Having my house broken into, held at gunpoint, beaten, and my brother was shot. It really felt like they were taking their time, but it probably didn't last very long. Probably the last 5 minutes of my dad's life. They'd done all they could for him and all that was left was to make him comfortable. We were all with him and sat around as he faded away. He was only 63 too. That was last August, but it feels like it was yesterday. I have a less harrowing answer as well. The last 5 minutes of an ultrasound on your abdomen, when forced to do so with a full bladder. Especially when I got my appointment wrong and showed up an hour early. I have, in all my 30 plus years, never had to pee so badly lol. Trying to help somebody you are certain will bleed out before the ambulance gets there. Waiting to clock out from work. Wanting to puke but instead taking an anti-vomit pill which lasted 1 day. OFC, my stomach was in pain all day and I couldn't eat or drink anything. There were many long 5 minutes. Ridiculously long.